So let me quickly go over that. And after that, we can get into the lesson for today. But I really wanted to go over the paper just so that we are like, you know, on top of what is expected of us and all of that. So let me share the screen with you all. Okay. All right, so this is what this week's module is. This is week 5, and this is what you have due for this week. So like the reflection post number 5 and your 15-minute paper number 5. So really quickly, let's look over the guidelines for the paper. So again, this is like your first major assignment for the class. So for the paper, you will be, for the interpersonal paper, you are required to select an interpersonal theory. And there's a list that I provided for you all that I'll go over in a second, but you are meant to select one of the theories from that list and research the following areas based on that theory. So whichever theory you select, you're supposed to answer the following 4 questions in your paper. So the first thing that I want you to research is who are the scholars / theories who developed the theory. So kind of like give us a little bit of background of who they are, where they got their degree, what school they went to, what was their field of study, and all of that. Next, I need you to tell me, like, you know, again, like I said, what field do they come from? What's their area of research? A lot of these scholars are not only communication scholars, but they're also like anthropology, linguistics, and all of that. So they kind of like, they're in different fields, but they're studying theories that are valuable for communication studies. Also, like, again, like I said, give us a good background on the scholars. Let us know a little bit about them. 2, how did they come across the theory? One of the important things about understanding theories is how these scholars kind of like came across them or discovered the theory. Did they do a study? Did they do, did they do a study? Did they do research? Did they do it by observation? Like, how did they get their theory? Like, how did they come across it? How did they coin it? What was the process like? That's question number 2. Question number 3, how does this theory apply / work in real life relationships? So I want you to apply this theory to either a real life situation that has happened to you, someone you know, or it could be a fictional character that you find on television or a movie. So again, how does it apply in real life? So apply it to a real life setting. And lastly, the last question that you're meant to answer is, why is this theory important to the study and interpersonal theory? Like, why is it important in communication studies? Why do we study it in interpersonal communication? And you can, for this question, you can both use your opinion and research that you have done. So like, give us a little bit of why you think it's useful, and also what does your research say as to why we study this in interpersonal communication? Like, why is it useful? So those are the 4 questions that you're meant to answer in your paper. So for the guidelines, your paper must be from 3 to 5 pages in length. It is double spaced, 12-point font, and Times New Roman with 1-inch margins, so your standard paper. Also, one thing that I want to point out is that you cannot use your textbook as a source for this paper. Your textbook is not a source. So when you're doing your works cited, textbook is not a source, okay? Also, Wikipedia is not a source. You're meant to find outside sources that are not your textbook, that is not Wikipedia, so reliable sources. In addition to that paper, you are meant to record a 3 to 4 minute presentation using the application called Flipgrid. I'm going to embed it onto the Canvas page, so all you have to do is click on the interpersonal presentation little assignment, and it will take you to Flipgrid. And I will also put like a video that helps you how to like use Flipgrid. So I'll do that too. And in total, your presentation will be worth 50 points. Your paper will be both worth 100 points, adding up to a total of 150 points for this assignment. And for those of you who are wondering when will this assignment be due, it's going to be due the 2nd week of October. So let me give you a date exactly when it's going to be due. So it's due the 2nd week of October, which is on October 7th. That's when the assignment is going to be due. So the week of October 7th, so October 5th and the 7th, that Tuesday, the 5th and the 5th and the 7th. So your paper's due on the 8th. But the week of the 5th and the 7th, we're going to have no Zoom meetings that week. so that I can give you that entire week so that you can work on your paper and in your presentation. So there will be no Zoom meetings that week so that you can focus all of your energy and your effort into writing a really good paper and giving a good presentation. Oh, don't worry about it. I will announce it again that there will be no Zoom meetings that week, but I'm giving you the entire week to work on your paper. Next thing that I wanted to talk about is the list of theories. A lot of you are probably wondering, you know, you're mentioning all these theories. Where do I find them? They are right here. So there is a list of theories right here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. So these are the theories. I have 18 theories that I have selected for the interpersonal theories. So one of the rules that I have is that since there are not enough theories for everybody to have their own theory to research, more than one person can do a theory and they can write their paper on that, but up to 2 people may do the same theory. More than 2 people are not allowed to do the same theory. So what I'm going to do is next week, you'll have a reflection post due, which is going to be reflection post number 6. Reflection post number 6 is going to be all about getting your topic approved for this presentation, alongside other things that I'll have you do on reflection post number 6. But one of the things that I'll have you write down is which theory you want. And I want you to be mindful of that. So when you are looking at the theories and you start seeing your classmates like posting the reflection posts and all of that, when you start seeing them do that, check out which theories have one person. If the theory already has 2 people, don't choose that theory. Move on to something else, okay? So if you see that the theory already has 2 people, or if it has 1 person, you can still choose it. But if it has 2 people that already claimed it, move on to another theory. So these are the theories that are going to talk about. So I would suggest that you look at the list of theories, you do a little research on each one of them, pick your top 3, and when next week comes up and you resubmit your reflection post, try to get it done as soon as possible so you can, you know, call dibs on the theory that you want. So these are the theories. So there's uncertainty reduction theory, social exchange theory, symbolic interaction, social penetration theory, identity management, communication privacy management theory, attribution theory, expectancy violation, cognitive dissonance, relational dialectics, symbolic. Oh, I have symbolic interaction twice. It's supposed to be only like 1 theory. So scratch that. Coordinated management of meaning theory, relational patterns, theory of intertype relationships, equity theory, attraction theory, predictive outcome value theory, and phase negotiation theory. So technically you have 17 because I repeated symbolic interaction twice. You have 17 theories to choose from. And like I said, do a quick Google search, print this list out if you can, right next to a little bit of what the theory is, and just have an idea of what theory you're choosing before you actually choose one. In the past, I've had students that are like, oh, like I chose the theory, but I didn't really know like what it was about. So now I don't want to do that. Can you give me another theory? Once you get that theory, like you'll get that topic approved. And I said that that's a go for you. You're sticking with that theory. So make sure that you do research on it so you know exactly what you're talking about. Again, all of these theories have a lot of research. You can find plenty of articles on it. You shouldn't have any difficulty writing about this theory. It's just preference if you have anything that you might like or not. Questions that you might have in regards to the paper. And again, if you don't have any questions right now, that's totally fine. You can absolutely ask me throughout the week, or maybe next week when you're doing like your topic approval, you can absolutely ask me if you have any questions in regards to the theories or in regards to what the paper should be like. I will be posting a rubric as to how I will grade your paper and presentation sometime next week. So I will go over it with you, letting you know exactly what I'm looking at, how I'm going to be grading it, and all of that good stuff. So hopefully, okay, so where do we request a theory? So thank you for asking. So the theory you requested on next week's reflection post. So next week you'll have reflection post number 6. And one of the parts of the reflection post number 6 will be asking you to list which theory you're going to do for the paper. That's where you requested. So hopefully that makes sense. And next week I will be grading the reflection posts as, you know, first come, first serve basis. So I will be grading them as you're submitting them. So the earlier you submit them, the quicker I'll grade and the quicker I will approve the theory for you all. So hopefully that, you know, so just like stay, so as soon as reflection post number 6 open, make sure you answer the reflection post and that you list the theory that you want to request. If you're not sure if you'll get the theory that you want, or if you want to have a couple of theories as a backup, you can put 2 theories that you're interested in, and I will just pick the one, you know, that seems, that has, you know, that doesn't have 2 people. So that's that. All right, so this week we're talking, last week we talked about verbal messages. This week we're going to talk about nonverbal messages. And it's really interesting because we often think about, you know, nonverbal messages, we often think of them and we're just like, we don't think it's really communication. We don't think it's worth looking at. But in reality, when we think about nonverbal messages, our daily communication wouldn't be the way that it is if we didn't have that nonverbal message, right? It wouldn't be we wouldn't be able to communicate or to just come across that way. So I am going to talk about nonverbal messages today. And I do have a video that I want us all to watch and analyze. So this week, your objectives are that by the end of the week, you should be able to list the principles of nonverbal communication. So what are the characteristics of nonverbal communication? And you should be able to identify the channels of nonverbal communication. There are different ways in which you can send messages that are nonverbal, and we'll talk about them a little bit more on Thursday. Today, our focus is just going to be the principles and just defining what nonverbal communication is. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to discuss body language. So I picked a clip from the movie 50 Shades Freed, and it's not something that's like, it's not graphic, it's not R-rated, it's just like a little scene in the movie 50 Shades Freed, and it just kind of like shows us about body language. So we're going to watch this. We're going to watch the clip from the 50 Shades Freed movie. We're going to see the interaction between the 2 women, and we're going to answer the following questions. Do you think the designer was flirting with Christian Grey, and how? How did Anastasia Steele exert her power? Next, you think the designer will back off? So those are the 3 questions that I want you all to answer. And again, I'm going to send you in groups, and I'm going to break you out in breakout rooms so you talk about these 3 questions. Again, do you think the designer was flirting with Christian Grey, and how? How did Anastasia Steele exert her power? And do you think the designer will back off? So those are the 3 questions that I want you to answer when I send you out in breakout rooms. And again, like I said, this is not something that's graphic or anything like that.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct. And this infinity pool will really make that feel sound.
You want to tear the whole house down?
Don't you? It's so dated.
I like it. I think it has character.
Well, a new house would be a statement and ecologically efficient. I mean, these older places are so impractical. It's up to you.
Actually, it's up to my wife. What she says goes. Excuse me.
Sure.
Hey, Ross. Yeah.
I suppose we could reuse some of the existing stone.
Gia. It is Gia, right? I'm sure you're very good at what you do. Otherwise, Christian wouldn't have asked for your input. But please stop speaking to my husband as if I weren't here.
Anna. I have designed many prestige projects.
You may call me Mrs. Gray. And this is not a prestige project. This is going to be our home. So if you want this job, I suggest you stop making eyes at my husband and keep your hands to yourself. Or you can go and climb back into your colored car and drive back to Seattle. It's up to you.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Gray, but I would never. It won't happen again.
Everything okay?
Yeah, we were just discussing an alternative approach. Something less in your face, more respectful.
Sure. Let me start over.
you see upstairs?
Yeah.
All right, so let me send you out again on breakout rooms. And again, we're asking, you know, how was she flirting? Like, was the designer flirting? How did Anna exert her power? And do you think the designer will back off? Let me send you into breakout rooms and we'll chit chat about it. And go. All right, folks, so we are back. Well, most of us are back anyways. And we're going to discuss what we just saw. So let's answer the question. So do you think the designer was flirting with Christian Grey? How was she flirting with him?
I felt like you could tell that like she's flirting with him, but like just like already like her body language, like in the clip you can see like she's like leaning towards him, and I feel like even like the tone that she was talking to him versus like the wife, like there's a subtle difference. So I feel like to me like that just gave off the vibe like she's kind of interested already.
Yeah, so we saw, like you said, like the tone that she was talking to him, you know, that kind of gave the vibe as opposed to the wife. Good. Anybody else want to add how she was flirting, or if she was flirting with Christian Grey?
I mean, if a random hoochie were to touch my man's hands, she would have caught these hands.
Yeah, so the hand touching is like definitely a sign of like some interest. So like when we see that like people like go out on dates and stuff, a lot of like the touching kind of like signals like that there is a lot of interest, right? Oh, that was funny, Kevin. Patricia, raise your hand.
Oh, yes, it was so rude that she was trying to get so close to him. And every time she spoke, she was directing all her attention to him, not to his wife. So it was like she wasn't even there. She didn't acknowledge her. She didn't mind her opinions. Every time she says something, she's like, no, and redirecting everything toward him. Like, he's the man, he's the one with the money, he's the one who's going to pay. That's the kind of attitude I get from her. Like, whatever he said, because that was where she was going to get the fans to do what she wanted. Even though the wife was saying, no, I don't want the house to be changed. I like the way it is. She's like, oh, but, going back to him, everything was him. It's like she had no say-so in the matter.
I love that.
Was very rude.
Yeah, absolutely. So like her eye contact and her attention was like directed at him. And she kept like ignoring the wife. Like again, just like by looking at the nonverbal communication, even like she wasn't even facing her or making eye contact with her. Good. And next question, how did Anastasia Steele exert her power?
Well, obviously she's gonna show off whatever X amount of dollars that ring is worth.
Right? Showing the ring, right?
To show
the bling, right? So one of the things that we're going to learn about this a week is that there is such a thing as artifacts being a channel of nonverbal communication, and the engagement ring, the wedding band, is an artifact culturally used to demonstrate, specifically in Western culture, used to demonstrate that that person is taken, right? And we see that her ring was like obviously like a very blingy, expensive ring. So that's how she exerted her power, showing the ring, right? Was there anything particularly about her voice or eye contact that kind of also went along with that, or was it just the ring?
She used like a very like assertive tone of voice towards her, because she was already like offended. So with that offense, she used like a annoyed tone of voice. And so she also told her, oh, you can call me Mrs. Grey.
So she exerted her position of power and she was very assertive. Good. I love that. Thank you, Karen.
Yep.
Patricia, go ahead.
Yes, I like the fact that when the husband came in, she let him know when he asked what was happening. Anybody else would have been like, oh, nothing, everything is okay. But the wife was like, no, we agreed on things are going to change. And he let him know where she was standing with that. And I thought that was very powerful and I really like it.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Like another, we were thinking in another situation, we should have been like, oh no, everything's okay, like all's good. But in that particular situation, she was like, no, we already talked about it. Things are solved, like everything's good, right? So she kind of like took that assertive tone with that. Next question, and my last question for this, do you think the designer will back off?
Yeah. I mean, like
100%.
I feel like she pretty much had like her own job, like there, and she's like, hey, you're gonna back off, you gotta lose your job. I feel like that's good enough.
Absolutely. Like she made it clear that if she didn't back off, like, she was going to lose the job. Right. And she was like, I don't care how good you are, but you need to back off. Patricia?
In our group, we have two decisions. One of them, the most of the guys, And one of the females also said, most of the guys said that they don't think that she'll do it again, but as a female, think that she'll be more sneaky at doing it. That if she continues to do it, she will do it when the wife is not present. That's the female vision of the situation, and the guys think, oh, she had enough, she will not do it again. But I think she'll be more sneaky. She'll continue to do it because it seems to me like it's a habit learned. That in order for her to continue to getting ahead in her field, she's so used to using her body to get the position where she is, and she'll continue to do it to get what she wants. That's how I see it.
That is very interesting. So if you actually like watch the movie, the entire film, she does continue to like not so many times, but like she does flirt with him again, and I think she starts to flirt with his brother. So like she moves on to his brother. It's really interesting. She moves on to his brother because they're all like super rich or whatnot. Super unrealistic expectations in this film. Anyhow, so hopefully this exercise kind of like gave you an idea of how powerful nonverbal communication is. This conversation would have gone completely different if the tone of voice, the body language, and even the eye contact had been completely different. You can exert like so many different emotions based on your body language that you wouldn't do if you just looked at the message verbally. So there's so much more to unpack there. So let's talk about the principles of nonverbal communication. So the first thing we have to answer is, what is nonverbal communication? So nonverbal communication is any communication without words. So remember how last week we talked about how verbal communication is communication that is either oral or written, but it only has to do with words. Nonverbal communication is everything else that are not words. So the rate that you speak in, the pitch, the volume, the tone, your eye contact, your gestures, your posture, even the artifacts that you wear, like we saw the engagement ring with Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey, all of that is nonverbal communication, right? And kind of like bringing you back to the beginning of what we talked about this semester, how you are never not communicating. That's where like the nonverbal aspect of communication comes in. Even if you are not saying anything verbally, you're still communicating nonverbally. The fact that you saw that message and left it unread on you, on like, your social media, or you left it unread on your phone, that silence is communicating something. So you're never not communicating, because if you're not doing it verbally, you are doing it nonverbally. So let's talk about the principles of nonverbal communication. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how nonverbal messages interact with verbal messages. Your nonverbal communication is always interacting with your verbal communication all the time. Like I said, when we were watching the clip of 50 Shades Freed, that conversation would have been completely different and would have been interpreted completely different if it had been the same situation, if the tone had been different, if the women had been different, if they were wearing different things. If she didn't have that engagement ring, the tone would be completely different. It would be a different scenario. And nonverbal messages complement verbal messages through these things. They either accent, meaning they kind of like highlight the verbal communication. They complement it. So for example, if you are saying, oh, like I'm married to Christian Grey, obviously the message, the ring complemented that message, right? It can either contradict it in the form of sarcasm. Your words don't match your nonverbal demeanor, so that's contradicting. It can also be about control. There are certain nonverbal gestures that we use to control. So for example, if you are talking and you want a person to stop talking, there are different things that you can do, like avoid eye contact. You can start looking away. You can try to speak louder to interrupt them or speak faster, right? Also, nonverbal messages repeat your verbal messages. So if you're saying that you're fine and you have a smile and your body looks relaxed, then you are kind of like repeating that message. Nonverbal messages can also substitute verbal messages. So for example, if somebody asks you if you're doing and you say, so, right? So they can substitute your verbal communication. But again, we have to be careful because gestures mean different things in different cultures. So this gesture that means so in Western culture might not mean the same in other places. So we gotta watch out for that. Next question that I have for you all is, do you think emojis replace nonverbal communication on online platforms? Do you think they replace them?
It's like when we use the phrase "I'm dying." If we use the phrase "I'm dying" without emojis, then you're like, "Oh my God, like, are you serious? Like, what is?" But
Right.
if we use the same phrase "I'm dying" and we use the laughter emojis, then they can mean like, oh, they're like dying of laughter or something like that.
Interesting. So like they do. So somehow they kind of like add that aspect of nonverbal communication. And I've heard it in the past, for example, that some people would argue that emojis don't send the right nonverbal communication, because even if you send an emoji, the emojis are so open to interpretation that the message can get lost. So for example, a lot of people use different emojis for different things. And so like, you know, let's say for example, the little poopy emoji, right? My mom for the longest time thought that was soft serve ice cream. For the longest time, she thought it was like chocolate soft serve ice cream. And she kept sending it to me. And I was like, what do you mean like poop? Like you're having a bad day or something? And she was like, no, it's like soft serve ice cream. It's chocolate. And, you know, eventually I asked her why she thought so. And she says, why would poop be smiling? So she's like, it has to be ice cream. And I said, no, right? So again, like, it's interesting because a lot of people would say, like you were saying, that without the emojis, the message is not the same. It's two different messages. So you can see how it does add that nonverbal communication aspect to online platforms or messages. But at the same time, if it's not interpreted the way that you intended it to be, then it can, like, the message can get lost. So I don't know, emojis, I think they do a good job, but at the same time, we have to be careful with them too, because they mean different things. I'm glad that my mom sent me the poop emoji, because, you know, I was able to send her on the right track. If she had sent it to somebody else, it would have been like, what do you mean? Like, might have been like insulting to someone else. Anyways, next thing that we're going to talk about is how nonverbal messages help manage impressions. Basically, we form impressions of others through the nonverbal language. So for example, based on what a person is wearing, what a person, like their eye contact or the way that they talk, we can kind of like figure out what kind of person they are, or just see if they're a person who is like agreeable, if it's a person who's conceited, if it's a person who's really shy. Like through the nonverbal, we can make impressions based on people. But also we have to be careful, because sometimes like the nonverbal aspect of things can mislead us certain ways. So there are certain people who portray like this nonverbal, you know, message of being, let's say, conceited, or being, you know, like full of themselves or whatnot. And it turns out that, you know, that person can be like extremely shy, have social anxiety, or somebody who's like really loud and very social and seems friendly could be somebody who is not really friendly, not great to be around. So again, we have to be careful when it comes to the nonverbal language. And we also have to, like, you know, be able to get past our initial impressions of people, because, you know, it might not necessarily be the truth. The next thing is that nonverbal messages help form relationships. So you communicate your feelings and your emotions nonverbally, right? So the question is, how do you let a person know you are interested in them romantically? How do you do so?
Usually, I think it has the way. I'm sorry, Kevin. You show it by the way you smile at them, how your face is light up when you're close to the person, and your whole body behavior changes.
You get close to the person. Good. Kevin, what were you gonna add?
I will say, like, I feel like you could kind of tell if like someone's interested in you, but like, I guess like how you kind of vibe around, it's like you kind of feel like there's like a little bit of awkwardness between you two. I feel like that could, okay, guys, I think it's just me not really reading a good situation, but I think like also mean like there's like some tension. Honestly, I'm probably the worst at this. if I'm being honest.
No, I can see what you're coming from, because from like you know, from all the people that I've talked to in general, you know, like when you are into someone, there's like that level of awkwardness because you don't know if the other person is just as into you as you're into them. So I can totally see that like level of awkwardness, because you're kind of like testing the waters, seeing whether the other person would reciprocate the feelings towards you.
You also test the waters by breaking the touch barrier.
Yes, the touch is like one of the like big things, right? Like if they react, depending how they react to touch is absolutely a telltale sign. Liz, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with Karen, like the touch and like eye contact, I think is also like maintaining like eye contact.
Yeah, like usually like it has to do with maintaining eye contact like longer than you would with an average person, because
Yeah.
like when we're going to get to eye contact on Thursday, and one of the things that happens with eye contact is that there's like an unspoken rule as to how long you're able to maintain eye contact with a person that is appropriate. And if you keep it longer than that and followed by other gestures, you know, it could prove that you're either interested in the person romantically, or it's kind of like a power contest, or it's kind of like intimidation. So depending on how long you maintain that eye contact, it can definitely send different messages. So I love how you brought that up, because eye contact is definitely a thing. And also kind of like what Karen was saying, touch is also an important thing, but also how you use touch is also important, because if you are too aggressive with touch from the get-go, it can be interpreted as, you know, like it could be seen as harassment, it could be as too intense, it could be like misread. So you have to kind of like test the waters little by little, so that you don't go like too much and then it might be interpreted as something super aggressive.
Or you can be considered a creep if you're calm.
Yes, creepy. There is like such thing as like creepy eye contact, and also like creepy touch. Apparently I learned this from my public speaking class. There is such thing as people being creepy with touch and eye contact. So that's big deal. Anyhow, so for today we are done. So we went over the guidelines. We covered half of chapter 5. On Thursday, I will be covering the other half of chapter 5. I'll have other discussion and videos that we'll do. And I'll also see if I can get the rubrics up by Thursday so that we can discuss them on Thursdays ahead of time. We're good? That sound good? And thank you for that, Rachel. Yeah, there's like a weird touch situation. I agree. There's like I at least like with all the other girlfriends that I've had, and who when we get together they talk about like their dates, or like there's like that weird touch situation. I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to explain it, because people have different ideas of that. Anyhow, you're all done for today. I will be seeing you on Thursday. Make sure you're keeping up with the reading. Submit that quiz, submit that reflection post number 5. Start doing a research on your theory so you know which one you are getting into. Don't be like those students that I've had in the past who are like, well, I just picked it because I just like randomly pick one, but now I don't want that. Once you commit to that theory, okay? See you all on a Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a nice day.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.